This is the longest war in Israel's history, and that was the most significant attack in Israel's history as well. I think it's fortunate that I was here for that, to experience that and be here and play my part.
The whole thing has been crazy to watch unravel. You have the Iranian people who are just super excited about what was happening, and then you have the Iranian people here in America are still cheering as well.
I just want Americans to understand that war, just like death, is inevitable. You could try to avoid it as much as possible, but it's gonna happen. So try to better the community around you instead.
Here we go. Welcome to Time to Head North podcast, brought to you by the North Group, security refined by intelligence. And today I bring back a good friend of mine, Nicholas, and I want to really talk about this. I'm not sure if you guys remember me interviewing him before, but he currently still lives in Israel. He's an American citizen. He has served in both militaries, correct?
Right.
And he's currently still right now in Israel. And so we've been going back and forth about what's going on. And, you know, Nick, if you don't mind, man, I'd love to hear kind of your views on why this even got kicked off and started, and why was now the time that Israel and America felt it was necessary.
You can start with Iran's Proxy network. Let's start with that. This makes it a little bit simpler to build up to going after Iran and their mainland. So Iran's proxies, you have the Houthis, you have the Hezbollah in Lebanon, which is a global network. They also have a faction in Iraq. You have Hamas and the IRGC, basically, which is Iran. But they also operate out of, Syria, or they used to, at least before the new Syrian government. So basically, obviously, October 7th, like we discussed earlier, Hamas conducted the attack. And since then, the geopolitical global stage, especially in this Middle Eastern region, has just, escalated significantly. This is the longest war in Israel's history. And that was the most significant attack in Israel's history as well, which, I think it's fortunate that I was here for that, to experience that and be here and, play my part. As little as it was compared to a lot of people, I still got to play my part. Basically, as you saw with Venezuela, they also are running a network. On my Instagram, I did a bunch of, intelligence work with my team Odin. We created a team. It's like cyber intelligence, digital reconnaissance, OSINT analysts. We just teamed up together. We went and looked into Venezuela even more than like a lot of people have. And you could see really the depth that Iran, the IRGC, Hezbollah, their network plays in South America. So this all kind of ties together, really. So they're trying to create that soft power and sanctions evasions in the Western Hemisphere, in our region, which also threatens the United States. So with that, and also threatening, you also have the Arab Gulf states, which are also benefiting from, taking the Iranian regime out. It's not just Israel and the United States. It's also the entire Arab Gulf, which, as you remember, with Trump, mediating that Abraham Accords, that's fragile, and it was unheard of 10 years ago. And we have to keep that up. If we really want the United States to stop being directly involved in the Middle East, that Abraham Accords is essential to to perfecting and getting more countries involved. That way, the United States could be indirectly beneficial or benefit from the region with Israel and the Arab countries together like that. Unfortunately, we have this, this Islamic theocratic regime, Iran, that is hell-bent on destroying anything Western. I forgot what the Saudi prince's name was. He said something along the lines of the Ayatollah is like Hitler because he's an expansionist. He said that back in 2018, and it's true. He is. He's an expansionist with his proxy networks. So that is a threat in the region that needs to be completely stopped. And people, you have people saying, we don't want the United States involved, all that kind of stuff, but you got to think about it realistically, okay? The United States controls 25% of the world's GDP. They're going to be involved. There's no such thing as the United States not being involved in world conflicts or, anything of that sort where they are benefiting. So you have to be realistic on that. As far as why not the U.S. just do it themselves? I mean, no one has better intel on Iran than Israel, and the United States knows that. At the same time, you also hear people complaining that where was Israel during the entire GWAT? And now they're complaining that Israel and the United States are working together. and kicking ass, actually. I mean, the United States and Israel working together right now have taken out more leadership in a shorter amount of time than the United States and NATO during the Afghan war. In a shorter amount of time, we've taken out the Ayatollah. How long did it take us to get Osama bin Laden? Like a decade, right? It took us 24 hours to take out Ayatollah, and just like a few hours later, we took out his entire leadership. That's not including last year with Israel's, preemptive strikes on their entire, leadership, their commanders. So this is incredible military operations, and it's not getting enough, recognition in that way. It's getting more, bad press. You have people complaining. You have a lot of foreign influence. You can look in the comment section. A lot of these accounts come from Pakistan, India, Nigeria, a bunch of Sri Lanka, you name it, and they're trying to get involved and divide people. And a lot of people are picking up on that and just repeating it, spreading AI videos. But
yeah, that's crazy. It started with the Russian-Ukraine conflict and seeing how much AI is used. It's incredible to see how many people still can't seem to decipher what AI is or what is accurate, what's not. And it's been interesting. The whole thing has been crazy to watch unravel. You have the Iranian people who are just super excited about what was happening, and those are in their country in Iran, right? And then you have the Iranian people here in America for some of the majority are still cheering as well, right? And then you have the American people who are arguing against it, whether it's should be happen or not, and it's confusing, but it's no different than what happened with Maduro in Venezuela, where Venezuelans are praising, like, thank you, Trump, 40,
absolutely,
however many years, right? And then now you have just Americans who are fighting it. So it's crazy to watch what's going on right now. Like, I watch it from afar, trying not to make any decisions, thinking, okay, I know Iran has always been kind of a challenging place that we've always kind of teetered on, are we going to go in with them or not, right? But now we did. Fine. Do I care? I'm not really too threatened by it. And like currently, like my family, I feel like, all right, this is something we should look into. I think I do have thoughts about, these sleeper cells that have come in through the border during the Biden administration and the possibilities of everything that can happen from there. That's a concern, yes. But I carry concealed. I do my thing. I'm always prepared in that sense, so I don't feel too much. I think the American people should be prepared in the event that does happen. But what I find interesting is things like Dubai getting attacked. Why is Dubai getting attacked? What is the purpose of that?
right. Well, it's a layered purpose, I guess. So I'll bring up something that not a lot of people are talking about. So they're gonna hit Dubai, Bahrain, all over Qatar, even, which was surprising for me. I was surprised because Qatar and Iran have like a little secret relationship going on, but now they're spoiling that relationship. Iran's not being very smart right now. Now they're blaming like regional commanders that are doing that, and it's not coming from the top and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't think so. So the reason why they're doing that is because they want to. Pretty much those Arab Gulf states, they rely on that tourism and that safety net of being like, they have so many influencers coming in, they have so many investors coming in, they're playing on this 2030 vision, right? So they're trying to be more modern, and you have to give them that credit, because like since the 70s, Saudi Arabia was pushing some pretty extremist ideology throughout the West, and now they're starting to kind of converge and be like, you know what, this is like real life, this is how it works. The United States is this global power, so let's work with them. And it's in the Abraham Accords, which is beautiful. So that Iran is going to attack them to pressure those Arab Gulf states into convincing the United States to stop the war. Now, remember, we have our largest overseas base over there in the Arab Gulf. And we have the Strait of Hormuz and all that stuff that's being threatened by Iran. So they have this soft power that they could convince, or at least try to pressure the United States to kind of dial back on this war. So that's the tactic that they're using, is attacking civilians in those Arab Gulf states, because that's where it hurts. That's where their investors are. That's where their influencers are. And if you haven't noticed, I don't know if you have or not, I don't know what your algorithm is like, but you'll see all these influencers in Dubai, like there's like this trend thing that is going viral, and it's like, oh, people ask if I'm scared because I'm in Dubai, and they say no, and then it cuts to like the princes and the royalty, like flexing in the video, and it's funny, and then like it's other people from like Germany started doing it, anyways. So you just saw all that propaganda get spread, and because they're attacking civilians, so it would pressure those Arab Gulf states to then pressure the United States.
Yeah, I can see that. Yes, sir. Does Saudi Arabia even have like a fortified military or anything if they need to defend themselves? Is there anything? What would they use?
Yeah, they have air defense. Yeah, and yeah, they have air defense, and then I mean Kuwait also does. Kuwait's also getting hit too, so it's like that spoiled child that is just lashing out on everyone. That's Iran. They do have defense systems though, but it's never perfect. Like last year, I took a blast away from an incoming ballistic missile from Iran while I was making coffee, and there was no siren, there was no alarm. I was just making coffee, and then whap, and I got thrown in my room, and then the alarm came afterwards. So these air defenses, and today it happened. I I heard explosions, and I was like, man, am I going crazy? Like, am I getting like this PTSD thing? And yeah, it wasn't going crazy. There was actually explosions, but there was no siren, no alarm, nothing like that. So it kind of keeps you on your toes to always pay attention. Like when I'm asleep, I'll wake up and then I'll go back to sleep. But anyways, yeah. So the air defense systems are not perfect, and they're never going to be perfect. At least not in my lifetime or your lifetime. But they do great for the most part. You can't expect everything to be perfect.
How close are you to the action right now? Like, did that if what was the closest maybe explosion that's happened right now in Israel that you might have been close to?
Right when you texted me, I just got out of the bomb shelter. Swear to God. Yeah, I literally just got out of the bomb shelter. That one was close. Not as close as a few other ones in the beginning. There's these cluster munitions now. They're sending them. Well, they sent them last year too, but they're sending them consistently now. So, I watched it spread. I was like watching it. I sent you the video. It's like a 2-second video, and then I turned it off because I saw it spread out like this, the clusters, like Skyfall from 007. And I was like, oh, and I just like, I'm not videotaping this. I'm like, I'm out of here. Usually I'll hang around if it's 1 or 2 or 3 missiles. I'll like hang around and like watch them go. But once I see that cluster go, I'm out.
Yeah, yeah, and that cluster is how they tried to defeat the Iron Dome, right?
I mean, they launch it on civilian populations, and it's like the same type of thing. They did, but the Israelis are very used to this. They have built a resilience to war. Like we'll get bombed and we'll go about our day. Like we just got bombed. Everyone just left. We went back to the bars, the restaurants, the coffee shops. Everything just opens back up. The owners leave. They close. They open back up once the firings are done, and you get the text that says you're good to go. It's normal day. We work around it every single day.
What would you like to see from this conflict? And like, you know, what is the end state goal here for America, for Israel? What would be the best outcome that they're looking for?
So you have Israel and the Arab Gulf states. I'm pretty sure Azerbaijan is getting in on it. Is and a few other ones. I'm gonna butcher the names, but some are teetering, some are on the fence. So I don't want to say full names because they're not official yet. But there's a bunch, and maybe not Saudi Arabia. It was UAE. So, anyways, once that it gets settled, and it was about to before October 7th. That's another thing. Iran didn't want that to happen. So if that gets settled and that becomes concrete and trade starts to happen and good relations start to happen, there for the first time ever, there's flights from Tel Aviv to Dubai. 10 years ago, I would have never imagined that. That is the reason why, by the way, Israel didn't get involved in GWAT, was because the Bush administration and the Obama administration said, no, we do not want Israel in Afghanistan because that would ruin relations with the Gulf, the Arab Gulf states. They would not like that. If we want to be present in the Arab Gulf states, if we want to have based out of Qatar, based out of, the Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, whatever, having Israel participate in Afghanistan would be an absolute no-go. But now And that's the reason why. A lot of people don't know that. So people are like, they weren't with us in GWAT. That is the reason why they weren't with us in GWAT. That is exactly the reason why. They helped with intelligence and all that kind of stuff. But anyways, what I was saying is when that relationship starts to work with Israel, which is like just the entrepreneurship tech hub in the Middle East, I mean, they have the best cybersecurity here and the best intelligence in the world here, right? Once that relationship starts going with the Arab Gulf states and a few other countries in the region, it'll be unstoppable. And the U.S. won't have to be directly involved in anything. They could be indirectly involved and benefit financially from that relationship that they built, right? So that's what's important. That's what people need to focus, get our focus back on the Abraham Accords. That is very important. Trump did an amazing job with that. He doesn't get enough credit.
No, I love that, and I appreciate that. That's a great insight to this. Something that we've seen early on in the attacks, I've seen two different reports. One that the America or someone attacked a school of all the school age girls. Then the other, on the other side of it, I'm looking at, is this psyop? Is this AI? What is it? And I did find reports that it was potentially AI. Any confirmation whether this was legitimate or not? Or also another report was that Iran might have bombed their own place and to blame it on us as well. That's another report. I don't know which truth is what. Curious if you've heard anything about that as well.
I have. Bellingcat looked into that. Surprisingly, they looked into that and not the protesters, the thousands of protesters that got killed. So everyone's focused on that, but not the 50,000 people that were slaughtered. But that's a mistake. And being an open society, being a Western democratic country, that's what we have to deal with. We are going to make the headlines for that type of thing. That's kind of, that's the, the pros and cons of it. And, I saw that Iran did it themselves. There's a few photos of that, which wouldn't be surprising. But then the Tomahawk missile is directly aligned with the United States. And I also heard that it was like adjacent to an IRGC base as well, which wouldn't be surprising either. There's definitely, evidence of them, embedding themselves within civilian populations and stuff like that. I mean, they love their proxies to do that. Hamas does that all the time. That's like their MO. But I think that's still under investigation. I don't think that their videos are AI for that one. I'm sure there's a bunch of different ones, but the ones that are Bellingcat are posting and investigating, they're pretty much doing intel for IRGC at this moment. But it's real. But just as much as anybody who's been in a war zone that it's ugly and stuff happens. Nobody intentionally wants to kill children, especially a Western country that's stronger, that's trying to overthrow the regime. And you have Israel and the United States. There would be no benefit to that intentionally targeting a school full of children. Now, would that benefit a country like Russia or Iran or any of them? Absolutely. Because that would pressure the population into pressuring their government to stop the war at all costs. But that's not going to stop us. And unfortunately, ugly stuff like that happens in war. And it's something that a lot of people, most of it is selective outrage. Because not a lot of people said, there's a lot of things that nobody said anything about the protesters getting slaughtered.
Right, 100% correct. I thought that was interesting that people really focus on that, and that's what their talking points are on social media. When they're trying to, there's not a lot of people who agree with this war. I personally, I'm still on the fence of understanding everything. I really like to just kind of take it all in. I do see the value in why we had to. I do see the issues we've had with Iran in the past. I do see some of the conversation about, excuse me, just get a drink real quick. Some of the conversations about nuclear weapon opportunities that Iran was starting to make, things like that, and just kind of using that over a lot of countries' heads that they'll use those at any moment. So I see the value in this. Maybe you can help educate some of the people who are listening right now on what are some of the things that Iran did recently with those protesters and what that looked like and why this is important for Iran to kind of get out from under the regime that's kind of controlling them.
Well, the funny part about that is, well, it's not really funny. They turned off all the internet, so it's kind of hard to get information on that when they shut down their entire internet. People were trying to escape. You had a few videos making it through because the Starlink was getting smuggled in by likely the Mossad and CIA were smuggling those in with Faraday cages. I saw a few pictures. I don't know if those were from the actual smuggling, but they definitely did smuggle Starlink in. But it's not surprising because, again, it's an Islamic theocratic regime, and they have one cloud that they run off of, the Aravan cloud, and they could shut it off completely and only run their state media. So I don't know if you saw it, but when you're watching like the net blocks, I think that's what it's called. Anyways, you'll see that their internet is completely shut down, and it's like a flat line. But then you'll see one spike, and it's Google because they're running off Google Analytics, and for their state media. So that's all you'll see running during that time. That needs more investigation, which not a lot of people are investigating. Maybe I'll get into that a little bit more. I've been a little busy lately because of this stuff, but that is something that I will look into more, and it needs to be looked into more. I think that the Persians, the Iranians, and the diaspora who have family there and friends there, they need bigger platforms so they could get that information out because they're getting information from them. So those are like the core, intel nodes that we need to speak with and get more information, real information coming out of there. A lot of the information, when I'm monitoring Iran, I'm monitoring the IRGC, as I'm not really monitoring the civilians there. It's kind of hard, they don't have, I haven't found any encrypted channels from them, but IRGC is all over it. And then you got to be careful because it's got to filter out the Pakistani ones that are pretending to be Iran and all that kind of stuff. You want to get authentic stuff, but you have to understand that that's how it is, and if you can't just pick and choose what you're going to be outraged about.
Well, let me ask you this, man. At the end of the day, America is kind of divided. Recent media, recent influencers, Sean Ryan's touching on this a lot. This big push for why are we so involved with Israel? And it becomes a question whether Israel is really running America in the sense of like kind of a stronghold on American politics. That's a big question for a lot of people right now. And I'm curious to know from your perspective, what are your thoughts on that? And why has that been such a massive topic?
I think it's a massive topic because it makes the algorithm spike. I don't think it's authentic or a good argument at all because it's not true. I mean, just not even continuously, Trump has sent letters to President Herzog. So you have Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, which everybody knows. There's also a president, and Benjamin Netanyahu is on trial for a few things. He spent some, I might get this wrong, but he sent some tax money on cigars and champagne or something like that domestically, right? So he was on trial for that, and Trump is sending letters to President Herzog saying to acquit him, to find him not guilty or to pardon him. That's what it is. Pardon him. To pardon him in Israel, the way it works is that he has to admit guilt to be pardoned. So Trump is literally directly from the president involving himself in Israeli politics. Is Benjamin Netanyahu, did he do that during Trump's trial? They had people speak out from him, but at the end of the day, the United States, Israel, they cannot agree on anything. If the Knesset is the Congress here in Israel, there's not two people that could agree on anything in Israel. It's balagan, what we call it here. It's a mess, right? So to think that they're able to collectively create this cabal and control the strongest country in the world with 350 million people when they can't even control 9, right, is just absurd. It's absurd because some doesn't get past go on.
A big part is how much money we are sending Israel. And really the whole thing is I want to put it out to the open. Let me understand it better. Let the viewers understand this better. Someone who has more insight than any of us Americans right now as someone who lives in Israel and kind of sees it. And you've kind of played both sides of the fence, not play, but you know both worlds very well, intimately. And so
I
I'd
just
love
like the adventure. Yeah.
yeah, and I'd love to understand that as in like that's a concern to me that we pay so much money to certain countries. And you know, which I won't get into is the whole Epstein thing and the potential you know, extorting, you know, and being able to have information potentially on our administration that might potentially lead us to have to kind of work with Israel based on some of all the things, right?
Okay. Well, just to real quick touch on that. If Israel controlled the United States and everything about the government, you wouldn't even have even the slightest bit of evidence to even make that conclusion, because then they would just shut that off. Ehud Barak, who was he was a former prime minister for like 2 years, very unpopular in Israel, was friends with Epstein. The Benjamin Netanyahu called him out on that while he was rerunning for office, and said he was a piece of shit, basically, and all that kind of stuff. Ehud Barak is not very well liked in Israel, and just one guy doesn't make the entire government guilty of, you know, creating this blackmail market. But it sounds great because we're so invested. We want that Hollywood. We want that, you know, that type of like that makes sense in my narrative type of thing. And if you prove them wrong, then they'll just be outraged, and they're like, no, because the Jews control this and that also. And so let's talk about FMF real quick. Let's talk about the aid to Israel. How does it work? Well, as of now, 90% of the FMF, the foreign military aid, it has to be spent on American defense. 90%. So I have it written right here. Israel must buy American-made systems. Only a small phasing out portion, around 250 to 400 million in recent years or less than 10% of the baseline, can go to Israeli industry. The rest, 90% plus, is required to be spent on U.S., you know, whether it's Boeing, whoever wins the contract, really. So 90% of that money, and it has to be, and it's a phasing system. So by 2028, it's 100%. Mind you, the average salary for an independent person in the United States is somewhere between like $62,000 and $65,000 a year. That's like roughly $4 a year of their taxes going to Israel. And less than that, because $3.60 of that would go to the U.S. defense, like you have your Raytheon, your Boeing, and all that kind of stuff. And like maybe 40 cents of that $4 that you would spend a year going to foreign aid to Israel would stay in Israel. 40 cents of that. So that's 40 cents a year for the average individual salary. That's what the math came out to. And I have a Substack on here with hyperlinks that shows you Council on Foreign Relations, U.S. Treasury. Everything I mentioned in my Substack, I put the sources there for everybody. So you don't have to believe me. I'm getting this straight from the source. You also have to think about it like this. That is a certain bracket that they put that in for that type of funding. So regardless if it's going to Israel or not, it's going to a foreign country. That's what it's specifically selected for. But it goes to Israel because Israel is a great beneficiary. They share a bunch of intelligence. We're using the weapons that the United States is developing and putting it to the test constantly. So it kind of gets you, not only the money returns to the U.S. Treasury, but you also get feedback in real time on the weapons that you've created. And it supplied roughly around 20,000 jobs, people working for these organizations. It's helped with that. So more than, yeah, I have it. I'll send it over to you directly. It's more than 90% goes back to the United States.
It's interesting. You know, I guess I'd love to pivot here real quick about some of the potential threats in America. You still have family in America right now?
I do, yeah.
Is that a concern for you as well? Some of the potential, I mean, look, we had 4 years of Biden administration allowing 14 to 20 something million potential illegal immigrants. We know, we've seen the videos of, you know, Middle Easterns coming across. We've seen one particular video that went viral of an individual that was identified on the terrorist watch list.
Yeah.
And so we do know this isn't hearsay. This isn't just an assumption. We literally have thousands of undocumented, immigrants here in America, but more so in the past 4 years when the Biden administration was a lot from the Middle East. And personally, myself, went down there to the border and saw this and witnessed it myself. And so now we have this war going on right now. We have threats to California that are happening. I don't know if those were legit or not. They seem like they were, but now we're here in America. What are some thoughts for the audience of what you think we should be prepared for? What are some things that might be coming down the road?
There's going to be a lot of those lone soldier or lone wolf attacks. There's going to be a lot of those. There's the sleeper cells who are going to do their thing. A lot of online radicalization too. There's a lot of that happening via Telegram, or whatever other network, social media, even. There's a lot of online radicalization, but also you have to think. Dearborn, Michigan, which is where one of the terrorists came from, is a very large. I think we spoke about this last time. It's a very large Shia population. You told me something that there's a city in Texas too that had a large. I don't know if it's Sunni or Shia, but you have your Shia population, which is aligned with Hezbollah. I'm not saying all Shia Muslims are. So let me just correct myself there. Not all Shia Muslims are, okay, but they're clerics, they're scholars, whoever it may be. Some of these mosques, specifically the ones that are named after martyrs, so look out for those. The mosques that are named after martyrs are usually the ones that you can see radicalizing the people in there. Now, they're not going to radicalize every single person in there, but if there's one or two that are going to be radicalized, then they will carry out an attack that will make the headlines. And for the most part, the people in that mosque, whether some of them are capable of carrying out attacks or not, there'll be the quiet cheerleaders, which I wrote in the Substack I just released not too long ago. I talk about the quiet cheerleaders, where they know what's happening. They know the type of rhetoric that's being used. So they're not going to, come out and just blatantly support it, but they're also not going to condemn it. And that's a huge issue. That is an absolutely huge issue. And then you have civil rights organizations like defending these people. And I think that's also what played a part in that, who is that guy? The guy who got stabbed 22 times by that cadet. He went to the ODU or something like that, and he shot the I think he was like a lieutenant colonel or something. Killed him. Yeah. So that reminded me immediately. I thought of the Fort Hood shooter. I don't know why. I thought of the Fort Hood shooter right away. I think he had different links. That was Al Qaeda. This guy was ISIS aligned. ISIS has very significant recruiting techniques online. And that's not necessarily directly from Iran. Iran is mostly Shia, but they work together with, Muslim Brotherhood, which is Sunni. And it's they'll fight once they defeat us. Once they defeat us, then they'll fight each other. But until that happens, they're going to work together. That's the kind of ideology and mindset that they have going on right now.
Just recently, that Old Dominion University ROTC candidate, the Old Dominion shooting that just happened recently, right? The campus shooter, he was connected and affiliated with ISIS. That's
right.
That's another one that's just kind of just recent. I think that happened 2 days ago. And then I think in Michigan, I think it was yesterday, was an active shooter in a Jewish. What it looks like, it's a religious kind of disposition, right? They just believe that the Western world is bad, I guess. Is that what the foundation of these attacks are coming from? That they just don't like the Western values? Is it just America is?
It's not just America. Well, you'll notice when I talk about anything really, I'm not just. I don't. A lot of people ask me this. Why don't you say, "Oh, I'm representing the United States," I'm talking about the entire Western world, because that's how they look at it. I'm a counterterrorism researcher, so I read their texts. I read their, like, every time they pull a quote from the Quran, from the sword, they use it to justify their actions. They're talking about the West. They're not just talking about the United States in general. Iran talks about the United States being the great Satan and Israel being the little Satan, but as a collective, it's the West. So I always refer to the West. The West, we need to get our shit together, and we have to call this out and point it out. So like grievances against like Western policy are a recruitment tool and not the root. You have to understand that this ideology outdates any American, fingerprints in the Middle East. Any type of influence that America tried to do in the Middle East, this ideology predates that by a millennium at least. I mean, al-Banna, the founder of Muslim Brotherhood in 1928 in Egypt, that was 1928. Now, you could argue, well, the British had a presence there. Okay, well, what about, what's his name? The other guy, his name was Qutb or something like that. I just butchered his name. He's an Egyptian guy. He was also one of like the main founders of the radical ideology of the Muslim Brotherhood. Anyways, he was imprisoned in Egypt by an Arab Muslim government. Okay, and that's where he formed his radical ideology. So you can't blame, and that's not even. I'm not going to go into Dar al-Harb, which is the House of War. This is an ideology that has been consistent and progressing and evolving for centuries. So you can't just say, oh, because of the Iraq war, oh, because of this and that. No. They look at the Western world as the enemy. And so they'll look at the Quran and they'll specifically highlight the verses from the swords. So like wartime Quranic verses. And that's what they'll use to justify it. Because but again, that's just a recruitment tool to get other Muslims involved.
Sorry, it's an interesting time. I'm trying to make sure you don't have the echo on your side. Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
We have little things that happen and starts to kind of stir the pot here in America. One of the big ones that happened recently in New York is Mondani getting elected. And is just in your personal belief, is that a concern for us? I mean, look, I've worked with some of the Muslim people who are great people, right? And then you have the extremist views. Mondani is definitely a very different cultural kind of beliefs. And so now that we have him in office, is that something that you're starting to feel concern? Is this something that might be leading towards trying to dilute the kind of the American, foundation of what America is? Or is it just like, oh, it's not a big deal?
It's not the individual Muslim. And people will argue, oh, you're conflating Islam with Islamism. No, they're together. Okay. You're the Muslim people, true believers, people who are constantly, constantly going to the mosque every Friday or what have you, and doing Ramadan, doing the traditions. They know this. They're very well aware of the rhetoric that gets pushed. And if they say that that's not true, they're lying to you. It's true. It's not that they will act on it. A lot of Muslims have adapted and grown and lived their lives in Western civilization, but those are not the ones you have to worry about. Okay, there's 2 billion Muslims in the world. 2 billion. Okay, so even 1% of that is a huge threat. That's millions of people. So Mamdani in New York, he's a mayor, and he's your typical demagogue using false rhetoric to get a vote. So he's giving false promises a mayor doesn't have the power to do. And but a lot of people who voted for him don't know that, and they don't really care. So you also got to take that into consideration. As far as a danger, he's a danger because he's gonna neglect that bomb throw, for example, and possibly pressure NYPD. And what that's going to ultimately lead to, likely, is getting the feds involved. And nobody wants more feds involved in New York City or Chicago or wherever. You know what I mean? But I don't think the Trump administration is just going to let that continue to slide. So you might have to get feds involved. And they're asking for it at the end of the day. It's almost like they are asking for it so they could have a real excuse to say that they're oppressed. A real one. Like, now look, we're under martial law. Well, what did you do to get to that point? What did you continuously do? Attack police constantly? Throw bombs constantly? So there's ways to go about getting your word out, and then there's ways to really trigger an overreaction from a government, and then that's one of the ways. I just wish, in Israel, they're very there's a lot of nobody agrees with anything here. You have a lot of far left, right, what have you. But at the end of the day, everyone knows that we have an outside threat, and it's real because we're getting bombed by them constantly every single day. So even the most far left communist Israeli will keep that bomb door open for me. And that's what I love about it here. Now, and maybe in my hometown that would happen, but I can't say for the same if I was in the middle of San Francisco getting bombed. They would close that door on me real fast just to save themselves. And I don't see that here. So that's why I like it here in Israel, especially in the middle of a war.
Last question, man. Online they're talking about Netanyahu, and I'm going to butcher his name. I'm terrible at his name. But
you got it right.
They're saying that he was killed in a recent strike. I imagine there's going to be a bigger buzz than what we're seeing. And everything we're seeing is all AI imagery. It's just everything else. Is there any truth to that?
I haven't even seen that.
Yeah, they're saying that
Are
a
you
lot
getting
of
that on X?
Yeah, it's all on X. It's all over X. There's videos. There's videos. Look I go everywhere to get news, right? I'm over here always looking for everything. And there's videos of him, and it looks like AI 6 fingers. They're like, that's not him. So a lot of interesting stuff on there. So, look, if that was true, that would be that would be massive news for you guys, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah. It's not even remotely true. I've been seeing so much AI videos, and sometimes they'll leak on Instagram. I don't really go on X unless I'm doing, research on, JNIM, Boko Haram and stuff like that, because sometimes they leak on there. But X is like the dark web, which I monitor constantly. I spend way too much time on there because I do darknet research and stuff like that for freelancing. And I actually just built a tool where I could crawl a bunch of onion sites, and it's pretty cool. Actually, I'll show it to you. I don't know if you know about that stuff, but anyways, it looks like just like they came from hell of the dark net and came up to X. So I try to avoid X as much as possible because you have people from Pakistan just running just hundreds of thousands of accounts and just getting that algorithm. They have farms of phones that are just constantly pushing bullshit, and then people are eating it up, and people won't verify it because they want to believe it. They want to believe that Israel is just all these cluster bombs. I forgot his name. It's like Matt Murphy. I'm going to call him out on your show. So he posted this AI video, and he was celebrating the death of Israelis. And that he's a Green Beret and a sniper, right? And you would think he would know something about how cluster bombs work, cluster munitions work. He was showing an AI video of all these cluster munitions coming together onto one building. And I'm like, dude, cluster munitions spread out in an area. And most importantly, that's clearly AI. I'm like, how do you not see that? And he's like, Grok verified it. And this is what I'm saying. A lot of veterans in this space hate Israel so much to where they're willing to push misinformation and incite violence against Jews. And now you're seeing Jews getting killed, and people are calling it false flags. People are calling for violence against Jews on social media, and then when it happens, they're going to call it a false flag, which is disgusting and dishonest. And if you're going to call everything a false flag, then you might see a terror attack in your neighborhood. Something might happen to you or your loved ones, and people are going to be commenting false flag. How would that make you feel? Honestly.
Oh, absolutely. That would piss me off. And it's just, that's the problem we have with media these days. It's the problem we have with social media, with so much information, so much disinformation, and a lot of people, their lack of man, I don't know, just their pure ignorance and just sharing things like that is fascinating. It's just been the hardest thing to watch. And yeah, man, it's crazy to see so many people against everything from both sides of it. I watch it all. I sit back and I'm surprised and in awe as well with certain level of people's expertise in the military that they take a position like that as well. And I'm look, man, like I said, I try not, in the journalistic perspective, I try not to pick any sides on this, more so trying to understand and learn and hopefully help people get more information. I have someone else who will be coming on this podcast, and we'll probably have a counter belief to it. And I'm excited to see what their thoughts are and their beliefs and what they're saying. And I think it's important for us to do that. We don't do that enough, because if we did do that, I think we're going to be able to find a comfortable middle ground. You're someone who I felt has always been able to speak the truth on this. Comes from a perspective of that both countries would. So I think that makes your voice important for me, important to hear. And so I do appreciate that. And I agree. I think the misinformation, disinformation, and even the celebration of any death, I think is just kind of a little bizarre.
Absolutely.
And so, man, I appreciate you.
Yeah. The last thing is, it's like, I just want Americans to understand that war, just like death, is inevitable. You could try to avoid it as much as possible, but it's going to happen. So don't cry about what you cannot control in life. Try to better the community around you instead, because you're not going to control the geopolitical chessboard.
Can you just real quick give everyone where they can go find your Substacks, where they can read some of your work?
My Substack page is Global Recon Report. On my Instagram, I have a link. I have a link to it. So it's my Instagram handle is Global Recon Report with an underscore at the end, and then it's a picture of me at the International Institute for Counterterrorism. But yeah, I post a lot of open source intelligence tools, how to use that. I do really deep dives on terror networks and stuff like that. And if anybody has questions regarding any type of terrorist network in the Middle East, North Africa, or even cells that could possibly be in Europe or the West, let me know. Shoot me a DM.
Awesome, brother. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us on Time to Head North. Brought to you by the North Group, security defined by intelligence. You guys have any questions about security? If you guys are curious about how you can protect your homes, your companies, your high net value individuals, please contact the North Group at any time. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it.
Thank you.